Hi there, this is John Hyman from Commercial Real Estate Online. Welcome to the program. This is the video show for commercial real estate agents and brokers around the world. The website to contact us is commercial-real-estate-training.com. So visit the website, check out the articles that we put there every day relating to brokerage around the world. And so for today's program. This matrix I use many different ways for brokerage, sales, leasing and property management. In this particular video today, I want to go into the subject of leasing a shopping centre, and most particularly I want to go into the assessment of upcoming vacancies and why you need to think about that. Because your vacancy control will help you with stabilising the rent for the landlord, and of course that will improve the performance of the property over time. And just for starting this part of the program off, there is an article at the website to help you with this, how to solve common risks in shopping centre management and leasing. So go to the article and print it, download it, whatever you would like. So let's go into the topic and I'll show you what's in the matrix here for you. As I said, it's all about upcoming vacancies in shopping centres, how to resolve them, how to work through them, how to lease those upcoming vacancies, and of course how you can prepare for those vacancy threats, because they will always be there. So going further, the first category to look at here is the anchor tenants. With the anchor tenants, I'd be looking at these things. The lease terms and conditions, what are they for that particular anchor tenant or the multiple anchor tenants that you have. Understand those major tenants and go through their leases. Look at the make good requirements and how that can impact on the landlord, the timing of the vacancy when it comes up. Of course, anchor tenant leases are relatively long, so the planning for any make good changes when the vacancy occurs needs to be thought through. As part of an anchor tenant assessment, look at their marketing, what they're doing seasonally, and whether it's benefiting them and the results they're getting from it from a sales perspective. Review the rent structures that they have for that particular anchor tenant, the reporting requirements to the landlord. That will be in these sorts of things such as sales, foot traffic and marketing. Going back further here, look at the synergy between the anchor tenants and the specialty tenants in the property. So going back a bit further into the topic, assessing merchandise groups. There will be a number of merchandise groups in the property to assess. They'll be in these categories, which is entertainment and leisure, fashion accessories, food, general type tenants, health and beauty, major tenants, services, all of those things. Assess them for success, strengths and weaknesses. Then you should look at the clusters of tenants as to how they work around the entranceways to the property. That particular category is important to make sure the clusters work. Also the common areas, the food courts, etc. Then look at the associated expiry dates within each cluster. In other words, what vacancies are coming up in each of the cluster zones? Can that impact the cluster? Will it degrade the cluster in any way? And then look at your specialty groups such as entertainment and leisure. Customers come to a retail property for that reason. Also the food clusters and how they work, the vacancies coming up in food. Your merchandise groups and the tenant retention plan. That should be incorporating your cluster strategy. Let's go further. Out into contractions and also expansions. So some tenants will need to contract, others will need to expand or relocate. Make your decisions with that sort of thing, because those tenants will need to be incorporated into a future plan, particularly a cluster enhancement, larger shops, lease terms for the expansion, maybe the other locations you need to move tenants into, or how they will impact the other locations in the property, and the rental changes for the expansion. So going back out of there, look at your expiry date profiles for the entire tenancy mix. Graph the expiry dates. Consider the negotiation terms that you'll need to consider with each tenant type and the location. And refer to the business plan, because the business plan should incorporate the expiry date profiles. Refer to the landlord as part of that process to structure it correctly to make it work. As I said before, this will be integrated back into your retention plan, and your retention plan is part of the business plan for the asset. Work 18 months out when it comes to expiry dates, so you don't get stuck with expiries that are soon to happen where you may not have a strategy. Always work 18 months out to make sure your replacement tenants are found early. So going back out of that particular topic and looking at now the franchise tenants. There are different franchise tenants to think about and consider them on this basis. The struggling brands, the successful brands, the unsuccessful brands. That's important. Understand what the brands are doing, who is successful, who is not. And the rising brands that are coming up in the changes of retail, because they will be there. Those rising brands will be there. Understand the lease terms to match the franchise agreement, because the franchise groups, the brands, will need a certain type of lease to match into their franchise agreement with their particular franchisees. Also understand the marketing spend for the franchise groups, the media assessment, what media channels are they using, and also look at the merchandise groups. Who are the stronger franchise brands within the merchandise groups? Good questions to ask. Let's go back out of this one and let's look at some other topics here. Lease documents. So initially that'll be lease terms and conditions across all of the tenancy mix. I go back to the point of contractions, expansions, those sorts of things. Who's going to contract? Who's going to expand? Who is going to relocate? Then there'll be some licenses, which are quite different and unique. Licenses will be for special parts of occupancy attached to some other lease. They're there. Think about what they are, how they work, and how they can be enhanced for extra rent within the asset. There may be naming rights, options to consider with particular leases, renewals coming up, and special leased areas. So let's go back out of that one and let's look at the priority tenants. Now, anchor tenants, of course, are priority, also the specialty tenants. So split them up between anchors and specialties and then work them out on priority and merge it back into the business plan. Make sure your priority tenants are in your business plan and the leases and the negotiation terms and conditions that would apply to those leases. Let's go back out of there and look at the relocations coming up. They will be there. Strategize them. Make sure you put them into the business plan and the tenant retention plan. Solve those problems early. Let's get back out of there and look at the specialty tenants. Many different categories which I've covered in other videos, so check those out on this particular channel. Upcoming vacancies. I've mentioned the tenant retention plan a few times. So what is it? Why should you worry about it? Well, it will help you sort out your leasing issues early. It's a 12 months to 18 months future view of what you're going to do with all of your tenants in the mix. Merge it into the property business plan. Look at the incentive terms to apply to the leases under negotiation in that tenant retention plan. So you have to set some parameters for the incentives to be set. Then there'll be some lease terms, the assessment of the lease terms to apply to the retained tenants over time. And of course you'll have some priority tenants to work with and you'll have some rental types to think through. The rental types will be the effective rent, the face rent, gross and net rent. So set your rental types early, make sure you've got it sorted. So that's the tenant retention plan and that is part of the upcoming vacancies. The last point here to think about are your weaker tenants. Now the weaker tenants will be there in your property somewhere and you have to work out a strategy to sort them out. Understand where they are by location, by merchandise group, the expiry dates coming up and the marketing assessment. How much marketing are they doing? Is that their weak point? Maybe they should spend more money on their marketing, or maybe you should get rid of them, and that then comes down to a lease decision based on when the lease expires. So that is the end of this topic. This is part of how to manage and lease a shopping centre. Don't forget to check out the main website and particularly get the articles relating to this topic. And there's another article here for you to search out, which is 21 ways to manage a shopping centre successfully. So this is John Hyman. I do thank you for listening to the video. Subscribe to this channel so that you get the other tips, tools and ideas relating to commercial real estate brokerage, sales, leasing and property management around the world. And don't forget to visit the website, commercial-realestate-training.com. Catch you again very soon online.